Hello, I'm Matt Galloway, and this is the Current Podcast. Driving along a residential street in Old Masset, Haida, it's not hard to spot a workshop big enough to house a massive canoe. In the yard around it, there are huge pieces of cedar from trees that must have been hundreds of years old. There's a sign that says, "Please do not share photos of the canoe steaming process on social media at this time." Get a little closer to the shed, and you can hear the activity inside. It's all hands on deck this week to get this special canoe ready for a launch, which is just a few days away.
Yeah, it's been a hive of activity for the last several months. My name is Christian White, Kiriata Inudikyang. Maybe we could go outside here it'll be a little quieter right now. We got some ads work happening.
Christian White is a renowned Haida artist. He's known for preserving and reviving traditional Haida practices. We head outside to talk where it's quieter, next to a giant cedar stump lying on its side. Tell us what's happening in that shed right now.
Well, we're coming to the completion of a red cedar canoe carving project that we've been working on for several months. The canoe measures 50 feet long, and it's about a little over 5 feet wide. Many hands have worked on the canoe. I have 8 students and 6 apprentices working with me, and also my brother Derek, who's a master carver himself. I had the vision for this project several years ago, and I went to the forest and selected the tree. At first, I was looking at it as a war canoe, and as I progressed through the project working with my students, and I said, we don't go to war anymore. And then I thought, what can I call it if it's not a war canoe? Then I thought of it, the beloved canoe. So Klue Kwias is the name I'm giving the canoe in the Haida language, Klue Kwias.
How do you go about selecting the tree for a canoe like this?
Like over the years, it's been very difficult to find suitable trees, cedar, to carve a canoe. Over 80% of their forests were cut in the most viable areas, and so it makes it very difficult to find the cedars. I've gone into the forests for the past 30-some years looking for cedars for a canoe, for totem poles, for Haida houses, just on my own, really. It's very difficult to find these trees. Thousands and thousands and thousands of trees have been cut down that were probably very suitable for canoe carving. And so I've had to deal with what I could get. We're bringing a new life to the cedar. It was stood as a tree for over 600 years. So before the time Christopher Columbus came into the Western Hemisphere, it was standing here on Haida. And so it's stood the test of time through those generations. It was kind of on the edge of a cut block, so it's possible that it could have been taken at any moment. The winds could have taken it down, and another tree that had been cut down nearby had shattered into many, many pieces. So this tree, this cedar, come down safely. It's quite a process just to bring it here, and quite a cost. Many of our people can't afford that costs that are involved with getting cedars and then carrying it out into a project, such as a totem pole or a longhouse or a canoe. And the canoes are very special to me. My late father, Morris White, Chief Idensu, he initiated us into canoe carving around 1985. My brothers and I and our friends, we just gathered around him, like waves coming in around him, and working with him on his dream, really, to create Haida canoes. It was like a traditional way of learning. He was our elder, even though at that time he was probably just in his mid-50s. But he had the wisdom of, decades of his life here on Haida, stories that had been passed down through him. He was a very humble man, but people knew he was a born leader in this way of teaching.
What do you think you learned from him?
Well, he was the first one to teach me to carve at a young age of maybe 12 years old, my brothers and I. And, of course, our sisters were there with us. And we learned his style of carving, but he also taught us to learn our own style within the style. It's something that you can't learn in school. It's something that is passed down from generation to generation. I'd say the responsibility fell upon me to continue his work and to pass the teachings down to the next generation.
This is the first canoe to be carved in your family in
31 years. Yeah. Yes, it's been 31 years. And when I think about it, I'm actually at the same age as he was when he carved his last canoe. Yeah. He was around 62 years old.
And you did that with him as well, right?
Yes. And it's kind of just a coincidence that he carved his last canoe when he was 62. But, I hope this isn't my last canoe. But one reason there's so few canoes being made nowadays is it's very hard work, very, very backbreaking work to create one of these canoes, even with some modern tools. But, my favorite sound, though, is to hear the adzes. All the different adzes the students are wielding, and the chisels are just slicing through the wood. That's what I like to hear. It's like music to my ears.
Can you talk a little bit about how the carving is one thing, but when you get this tree here, the stages that it goes through, because there are various stages for it to become that what we just saw briefly inside the shed.
Well, after we get it to the site, and we're starting the project, and then we have to determine like the center of the log. We have to roll it around to the best side, because the log isn't perfect. It's a part of nature that's growing for hundreds of years. So we roll it around, trying to determine which side it's going to be the upside, which side it's going to be the downside, where's the center going to be. And of course, when you're dealing with a 50-foot cedar log that's over 5 feet wide, it's a very heavy piece of wood and could be very dangerous. So we've invented ways to help with that, even though we're basically using leverage to turn the log over. And, of course we use some modern devices, but, we think about our ancestors. How did they do this in the forest by hand with a minimum amount of crew? But I've heard those stories, and, that's something I'd like to do in the future before I get too old, is go to carve one right in the forest. It's not like nowadays where you could go there with a chainsaw and cut it down in less than half an hour, or an hour at the most. In those days, it would take a day or two, or if not longer, and then that's just to cut it down.
When you had the shape of it done, mm-hmm. What went through your mind?
To me, whenever I think about it, really is I'm actually humbled. I'm really actually humbled with what our ancestors did before, and how it was so routine for them, but for us it's so difficult. But after everything, the dust cleared and everything, and then I start to think, this is perfect. This is the way it's supposed to be, and so I was quite happy, satisfied.
How would you describe what the canoes mean to the Haida?
Well, it's a symbol. It's a symbol of freedom. Just like a totem pole or one of our traditional houses, it's a symbol of our culture. It's a symbol of pride. Like when I was a kid, really, we didn't really know what being Haida was. We start getting glimpses of it when we're young. When we first seen the first totem pole being raised in 1969, right nearby our house, and was carved by Robert Davidson. And then we saw elders and younger people making regalia and wearing their traditional regalia and singing the songs. So it was a long time, really. It's been developing for the last 55 years as pride in our culture. I know our people had been made to feel ashamed of who they were for decades, but the Haidas were always very proud, had always thought of themselves as equal to anybody in the world and never bowed down to anybody. Now we've come to a position where BC has recognized our title to Haida Gwaii. This is another symbolic event really to show that we are still here, we still have a living culture, and we're passing it down to the next generation.
What do you see? I mean, we're here on this site, and there's young people and kids that are running around, and I mean, it's busy with the community. What do you see as your responsibility to that next generation?
Well, I've been doing this really for 25 years, and I was just driven to do it. Felt like my hands were being guided, and it was just like I would have a material in front of me, like a whalebone or argillite or ivory, and I would just be able to just make something out of it, out of metal, out of copper. And it was just something, it's I was watching myself do it. I'm not formally educated, but I'm culturally educated. Like I often sat at the tables with elders and hearing them speak Haida language. I didn't understand much of it. Every once in a while they'd speak English, and then I would be able to understand what they're talking about.
When the canoe is done, what will it be used for?
Well, I want to travel. Really, I'd like to take it on a canoe journey. I've been on many, many canoe journeys over the years, mainly going to our Yaccoon River and then going to Heidelberg, Alaska, and then also traveling down the coast of Bella Bella. But now we have a bigger canoe. Maybe we could travel even further south. Well, Sunshine Coast first of all, and then Puget Sound, and then every place in between. And maybe even down, like our ancestors were known to travel down to California to get abalone shells. And then there's stories about where people even going far south is Peru. And, we traveled to other places too, Hawaii, Japan. And so that's all in our histories of our travels, sometimes by accident and sometimes on purpose. I think about that as an adventure. And I always say that... we hear about our ancestors' adventures, but I said we could make our own adventures. Our history doesn't stop 150 years ago. It continues with us, and also to travel to our villages around Haida Gwaii that have been not unoccupied for 200 years or more. And so that's one of my dreams too, is to start to raise our monuments in those villages. Many of our people have never been to their ancestral village.
Can we go in and see the canoe? Yeah? Okay.
So this is my father's first canoe, and we started it back in 1985. In 1989, we took this one to Alaska, Heidelberg, Alaska. It was the first time I was out on the open water in the canoe. Huge long waves. I was on the canoe for 18 hours. So this is our current canoe here, Kluwe Kwias. And you can see it's a lot larger, a lot bigger log. This tree wasn't perfect, but by the time we're done, it'll be perfect. And it's just like a human being. We're only perfect when we're a baby. Then we grow up and we get slowly corrupted by the world. But there's ways to really to heal from that too. And I think this canoe is helping us heal. I think I've grown a lot during this process. And so it is a healing thing for me.
How much more has to be done before it launches?
Well, we have to. There's going to be a design painted on the canoe, on the front and the back. So we're going to paint till probably 4 or 5 in the morning until it's done, and then we have to flip it upright again, and then basically we have to attach the front piece and the bow piece and the stern piece, and that gives it a nice flare in the front.
It's huge. How will this be turned over?
I'm hoping like 100 people will come in here and carry it out, or more. But I imagine there's going to be 1,000 people around, so I think we could do that. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. It'll be a way to show our strength and our unity and work like a team.
It really is an incredible piece. Yeah, when you were out, you've been in these. So what is that like?
Well, it's a whole different experience. Of course, these canoes, you're on there with like anywhere from 6 to 10 other people, or even this one's going to have 20 people on or more. So and then you're close to the water, You could reach down and touch the water. When you're paddling, you feel the water going by you. It's just a unique experience. People are used to going on boats with motors on them. All you hear is that drone of the engine, and you're always in a rush to get somewhere. But being on a canoe is a whole different feeling, like reconnecting to the waters, the ancestors, and it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. Some people might not be able to understand that, but for me, it gives me a good feeling of pride and connection.
What do you think it's going to mean? I mean, when there's a lot of people who are coming in for this, what will it mean?
It's something that we have to do more often, really. I look at my ancestors, and they had villages with dozens, if not 100 totem poles. And you imagine that each one of those totem poles had a celebration. There was a feast involved, there was performances involved, there were statements, there was names being passed down. And so that's the same thing we're doing, really. I guess in the non-native culture, you'd liken it to the Stanley Cup or the Grey Cup or something like that, which I have no connection with at all. So for us, this is it here. My wife and I and my friends, we attend other potlatches on the coast of other First Nations, such as the Herchuk and the Namgis. And what gets to me really is the culture and the ceremony. It's something we've lost part of it. What we incorporate more and more is like the joy of it, the pride, and the young people. They just love it. And then it's when we're doing this, there's the regalia is being created. Oh, my wife's going to snap them.
What I'm
Yes.
here for is the boundaries.
Yeah.
You got a canoe to design,
Yes.
and then it's lunchtime.
That's Candace Weir, Christian's wife. She's reminding him that he still has lots of work to do, and she laughs when someone calls her a force.
Am I a force? There's no real word for you.
She's helping organize everything. Christian's time, all the helpers buzzing around, and the festivities around the launch in a few days.
I feel like I didn't do a lot today, but lots of work to boss people around.
Right now, it's lunchtime.
For this. Say anybody else?
Candace and Christian's niece, Juliet, is serving it up.
All right, can you make one for him? You want to ask if he wants everything?
You want everything?
She carefully scoops ground beef, tomatoes, and lettuce into bags of Doritos.
Here you go.
Juliet's family is visiting from Metro Vancouver for the launch. Everyone on Haida Gwaii is talking about this launch. It is a big event. Saturday will be something.
And I ordered this, so it's coming.
Blue skies.
She's just warming up. Yep, it'll come. Even the skies listen to Candace.
She was right, of course. The sky cooperated. Dozens of people carried the finished canoe down to the water just across the road from the workshop and launched it into the ocean. Thank you to Christian White for giving us a little bit of time as he was scrambling to get the canoe finished. If you missed any of the stories from our trip to Haida Gwaii, or you want to see photos from this magical place, head to our website, cbc.ca/thecurrent.